Well, you hung out in Philly with them?
I did, and Robin, in West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent most of my days, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool. I got my butt beat and bullied every day outside of school. That's how he says the song should have gone. And with that, he is revealing that the Will Smith we know is just a fantasy that was created.
Hold on one second. How about the best live intro ever?
But I hooked you in, reeled you in, but that's how he does. The guy you think you know is just a fantasy born out of fear and trauma in his childhood. And look, now with a new movie and a new book, he is finally, Will Smith, ready to introduce himself.
Superstars don't get any bigger than Will Smith.
In West Philadelphia,
The Fresh Prince, the box office record breaker,
I make this look good.
the Grammy winner,
Getting jiggy with it.
the global phenomenon. Will Smith is now, in his new memoir, finally ready to reveal who Will really is.
That's the movie star walk.
Is that what that is?
Back where it all started, Philadelphia.
I was born and raised here, and Philly is stamped on my heart.
What you talk about in this book, that
yeah.
you were carefully crafted Will Smith this thing.
Yeah.
And you say clearly, that's not me. This
Yeah.
book is about me.
Yeah.
And you've been fooling us for 30 years?
There's a certain amount of protection that everybody does. We have a childhood trauma, and we decide that's never going to happen to me again. And in order to not experience that, it demands that we be a certain way. So this was the first time in my life where I felt like I had suffered enough to be able to have something valuable to say.
Is there anything in this book you wanted to make sure you ran by anybody?
I did a 2-week book camp
wow.
in Miami where I called everybody that I mentioned in the book, and I read everybody, every single word. My mother and I had never even discussed my father, being abusive with her. We'd never talked about it.
Ever?
Before, and the first time that we actually sat down and acknowledged the reality was when I read her the chapter. So it was hardcore, man.
You are steadfast and strong as anything in calling yourself a coward in this book. Still, to this day, you consider yourself that, or you passed that?
I always had this sense of being a coward because I watched my father beat up my mother and I didn't do anything. For a 9-year-old, it's hard to break that programming.
You mentioned a time, I think you were 13, that you said he hit her for the last time.
Yeah.
And she left, is what you wrote, that you actually thought about suicide.
My mind had twisted it into being my fault that my parents weren't, staying together, and somehow I had failed. That's the thing that you just never know what's going on in the mind of children.
Were you ever worried that what you saw coming up in the house, you would become that?
I always knew I would never be physically violent, but there's a sort of covert emotional violence that can cloak itself in jokes, stabs, and I had to get a hold of in that lane that was even hiding itself from me sometimes.